So for the person that is always super busy and you cannot actually rest because when you do, you feel guilty. Imagine now spending a whole day doing nothing, just sitting at home, not being productive in any way. This will be one of the biggest triggers to some people. But let's find out why. First of all, it will be harder to understand, but if we start exploring that feeling of not being able to actually sit with yourself and exactly enjoy the present moment, a lot of you maybe will experience a sort of anxiety rising, guilt, a lot that might be starting to come in, something too uncomfortable to cope. Even when you have a holiday or you have a day off, you have to do something. Maybe it could be a form of exercises because that makes you feel accomplished, even if you're not doing any sort of like work, but at least you've got some steps in. Or maybe you've done something, maybe a little bit of a side hustle. You have accomplished something somehow that tells you that you are good enough and you earned the day. You've earned your permission to be valuable. This is a feeling that is on a subconscious level. Sometimes we don't even understand why we feel like this, but we do. And this sometimes hits the overachievers, the ones that want to always hit the next goal, the next step. You will imagine all the time that you're working so hard because you say to yourself, oh, it's because I'm ambitious and I'm a super ambitious person and I want to provide for my family. I want to provide for somebody. But deep down, you know that if you actually didn't perform or didn't achieve or didn't get that specific goal, you would feel absolutely worthless. And this is something that also affected me for a long time. If I didn't achieve a certain thing at work or a certain achievement with my fitness goals or something, I always had the next steps. Then I would feel like a failure. I would feel like I'm not good enough. I would achieve a certain physique level with my fitness goal or a PB or something. I would work super hard to get there. And once I got there, that's it. There will be the next goal and the next goal. And some people would look at it as something, oh, this person is super ambitious. They always want to achieve. It's a good thing, right? But the problem is when you cannot actually enjoy and recognize all your efforts that you've been doing and you put blame when you're resting, which is something that should be absolutely normal. You should be able to feel comfortable sitting one day without doing absolutely nothing, without checking your emails, without still accomplishing something, without still going to the gym or like achieving something that is important to you, just simply existing and relaxing and still feeling as valuable as when you're running around on 100 miles an hour. That is the problem. We associate our value, our worth to the amount of stuff that we are achieving, that we are doing, that we are accomplishing. Because almost like without that, we would be nothing. Almost as if our right to be here and to be loved would be annihilated unless you achieve something. And this is a sign of deep disconnection with yourself. Maybe in your past, maybe your caretakers were also like this, or they try to project their own fear of accomplishing and they kind of in a way used you to boast with their other parents or with their family, or to use you as a means of like their value, projecting their insecurities or their unfinished wounds and traumas onto a kid or onto somebody, almost like seeing a child, the product of an empty canvas or a mold, let's say, that they can reshape into anything they want. And sometimes it's not malicious, it's done on a subconscious level because maybe they got it done too, maybe your friends or the environment you were, everybody was like this, so it became second nature. But in the past, when you're growing up and you still don't know, you're kind of learning around, you secretly start learning subconsciously that you're not good enough to be loved exactly as you are, unless you go to your bedroom or go do your cleaning or get really nice high grades at school. Then you're not as important and you're not loved. Maybe people will be dismissive with you unless you got a very good grade, and then they will give you so much attention, that love and adrenaline rush and dopamine that you will get, the feeling of connection, but will only last for 10 minutes, half an hour, and then they will forget again about you. So this kind of love that would come only as a reward when you're doing something great, okay, you're accomplishing something, you're bringing something home, you've done, look, I have achieved this amazing thing at school or something like that. It becomes almost like your way of thinking now. I'm only worthy when I achieve something. So when you grow into your adult self, you start applying the same kind of mentality, because that's what you learn when you are smaller. Again, this is something that maybe has not been done in an intentional way, like they didn't want you actually to perceive you like this, but because maybe in the past they got taught in the same way, and it's something that just kind of activates on a subconscious level. When you are not conscious of what's happening, you will also not only learn what you have experienced back in the day, but you'll start also transmitting it onto other people. Maybe you'll start even hating people that take their time instead of you. You'll be somebody that absolutely hate lazy people. You look at them like, oh, look at them, they're not achieving anything. It almost like it becomes a trigger. So you see somebody that instead they don't care, they're kind of chilling, because as they should on holiday, or sometimes they take the day off because they've already done their work. And you almost look at them with hate. You almost look at them like, why are they sitting there? And it happens on a subconscious level. You kind of have this trigger with this person that can instead enjoy their time. They can relax. They can have all that freedom of simply doing nothing and being okay with it that you don't allow to yourself. And that projection triggers you without you even noticing. That's why sometimes you cannot stand people that are not accomplishing, that are lazy, as you label. But without realizing that is something that maybe you wish you could do to yourself too, because you rejected it. You think that now, if you acted like that, you wouldn't be worthy anymore of love. Without understanding that your idea of love now depends absolutely on this. And if you ever stopped, that's why all the guilt would absolutely come as a cloud, and you feel so guilty of rest that you actually do deserve. So you keep going, you never stop, you keep running on 100 miles an hour, you keep working, you achieve the next goal, but it's still never good enough. You have to get the next and the next and the next and the next, because it becomes an incessant chase for validation and worth and love that you never got, simply for being yourself, simply for existing. As if the love, if it's not earned, then you don't deserve it. But that's a problem then, because then not only you start doing it on yourself, then also sometimes it transmits to the partners that you choose. If you don't work hard for that love, or if you don't become, skinny enough or beautiful enough, or if you're not pretty enough, or if you're not good enough, or even if you're not healed enough, sometimes it almost transmits to healing. A lot of people start a healing journey because they think, unless I'm healed, because that's what you hear. You need to learn, you need to work on yourself first before earning love. Otherwise, you will never be able to earn it. So it becomes also a next task. This cliche thing that you hear so much online and everywhere else, where they tell you you need to work on yourself before you can actually earn love, becomes yet again another task that you need to accomplish. Almost like you don't deserve love right now as you are. You have to first do work. First, you need to do this. First, you need to get in shape. First, you need to become beautiful. First, you need to work on yourself. You need to accomplish some things at work, your career and everything. And then maybe you might be worthy of love. But can you see how conditional that also becomes for you? Your search of love will never stop, because you have to yet achieve the next thing. You're not ready like this, because this is how you have been taught to be since childhood. And some of us will never ever stop, because this is ingrained in us until you actually start taking a step back and start actually recognizing all the hard work that you are good enough. Imagine sitting right now and being able to have a day off without worrying, without having the sense of guilt, actually deserving, and finally recharging, because you know that also feeling of tiredness that you feel all the time, every day, despite you get your sleep in. Oh, but I slept. You can sleep sometimes 8 hours even, and you still feel super tired. And then you wonder, why do I feel tired even if I slept? You keep drinking your coffee then, because that's another way of mechanism of hiding what your body is trying to tell you, because you're not stopping. Even if you're stopping or if you're sleeping, you're constantly having this anxiety all the time of not, almost like you don't even deserve that sleep. You should be doing something. It's always inside your mind, that feeling of not being good enough. And that's why no matter how your 8 hours of sleep will not stop, because inside of you, there is this voice that tells you if you really took a rest like you deserved, then your value would disappear and you will not be deserving of love anymore, because this is what you've been taught. This idea of constantly searching for either validation, it could be, and it's not validation only from attention. It could be, people always think, okay, it's validation, like a guy giving validation, but it also could be a form of achieving more. It's also a form of, okay, getting more money, the next position, the next level, the next whatever career path you've chosen. This almost becomes impossible impossible to always achieve. And this is why actually I remember studying at school this in literature, is an Italian literature, but like Giacomo Leopardi was saying that the nature of the human being truly can never achieve happiness, because even if they work towards something or a desire that they have, as soon as they reach it, they will want the next step and then the next step. And in this case, it's true, unless you start recognizing that, first of all, us as natures and as human beings, we're never meant to reach completion. So this is one thing that is a little bit difficult to understand and also sat with me for a long time, because I started doing therapy and I started doing my journey also of like self-discovery. And then it kind of hit me when I actually began to understand that this is something, I will never be perfect. I will never be wise enough. I will never be good enough as people describe that you need to be in order to earn love. Because in reality, this is a process that will never stop. Our self-discovery of our past traumas, of the next achievements, of how we are, will never stop. Okay, because the moment you stop, you'll start kind of getting backwards to the same steps, because our mind then kind of just wants to go and regress back to familiarity, right? It's the same thing when you're going to the gym and you want to build muscle. You can't really stop, because if you stopped training and exercising, you will then lose your progress and your muscles that you've made. And sometimes this scares people, because people want completion. They want, okay, I've done it, now I can relax, I'm good. And it's the same thing. But if you think of also the universe, it's infinite, right? It keeps expanding. It always leans towards expansion. Okay, it's not something that is finished. And us as being part of the universe, we kind of are kind of the same level of that energy. Okay, without going too much into it, because obviously I know that obviously we will eventually perish, etc. But our capacity of learning and acquiring, we will never stop. Really, our nature is to keep expanding, as even human evolution, right? We cannot just stop. It's almost aimed at expansion. The universe always tests you. The universe wants to always give you more challenges. So if you then stop at this thing, then you will start thinking, oh my God, then I will never be happy. And you'll always have this anxiety, because in your idea, unless you're perfect and you have this idea of perfectionism, then you cannot stop and you think that you're not good enough to be loved, unless you actually start accepting that this is all part of the journey. You being unfinished, you being a product that still needs improvement, you having imperfections, you coming as a package with traumas, wounds, everything, okay? Not still having achieved that promotion or that thing. You as you are right now, with your imperfections, your body, your extra layers that you might think that are not good enough for you. Unless you stop right now and you start appreciating who you are as a person right now and starting giving you that love back, trust me, you will never reach that feeling of perfection. Because even when I was super skinny in my fitness journey, and now I started obviously becoming stronger and gaining muscle mass, truly, when I always look at myself, even now, I'm never completely satisfied. There's also the next steps, the next challenge. Oh, now let me do this, let me do that. But it's almost part of us, right? It's part of being human. But the problem is when you kind of translate this not from a normal part of evolution, but rather of a part of value. I'm not valuable unless I reach this goal or this step. So unless you kind of start thinking about this, then you will always be unhappy, always feel like you're not good enough. And instead, when you see this as part of you, of human nature, of human being, expansion and evolution, and looking at it this way, then you can kind of sit at peace with not being perfect right now and not having to earn that love. You don't need to earn love just if you're perfect. You can earn it specifically now. There is people that have not got a lot of money and they've not had that promotion that still have love, they still have relationships. You look at your friends, they're not perfect maybe even in aesthetic ways, but they still found love. That proves that perfection does not equal love. You can deserve love even by not having a perfect body, by not being super pretty, by not being super wise, by not being healed completely. You can be loved like that with your flaws, as long as you start accepting and integrating and being honest with the person. You can be loved right now just doing nothing, absolutely nothing, just existing. Imagine how beautiful and liberating. I feel like just taking a big breath of like, just letting all this pressure go of being good enough. Just imagine how liberating it is. not to have to do anything to deserve love and be worthy in this life. Imagine how amazing is it to just feel good enough as you are right now. And I know that is feeling that is so foreign to people, but if you close your eyes for a second, inhale and exhale, and you almost feel like this baggage being removed out of your shoulders of being perfection or seeking perfection all the time. How liberating it is to, even for a second, to just think. And suddenly all the anxiety, tiredness, pressure that he was always following you around and chasing you. Yes, you can still, of course, aim at becoming better, but without that pressure. How amazing is that to just appreciate who you are, everything you've done, everything you are right now, not in an hour's time, right now, exactly in this present moment. And we struggle so much as like overachievers to even think about the present moment. It's always about the next step, right? This next step ahead. But what are we secretly running from? Some of us are even keeping so busy because maybe we are escaping from something. Sometimes it's a feeling, because if you just sat alone in a space in your home, or when you're not doing anything, nothing is distracting, no music, nothing, you know that those thoughts will start rising. Maybe you had a recent heartbreak and you're using that feeling of being busyness as a coping mechanism because you don't want to actually face that. But then you're kind of escaping from those emotions that never truly go away. They always stay. But all you're doing is always kind of like running away. But it's like your shadow. Your emotions will not leave, will always stay as part of you. And what you're doing, you cannot run from your shadow as long as that's what, but you will never stop working then, because you know that the moment you stop working, those feelings will just kind of like come in like a huge wave. Okay, so this is uncomfortable, it's unsettling for you, so you have to do something. Wait, let me like distract, maybe see my friend, maybe, I don't know, I will do some emails, even if it's my day off, let me just do, because it's just this feeling of uncomfortable, like that you cannot sit with. But what would happen if you actually, one time, you decided to listen to what this feeling is trying to tell you? And that's different from, by the way, listening or believing all your thoughts, okay? Thoughts and emotions are just a little bit of a different thing, because a thought can come and you can just observe it and not identify with it, so that it doesn't affect you. For example, it could be a thought of like you thinking, it could be, oh, I'm ugly, okay? Like there's this thought that arrives and you look at it and you immediately, what we do is just take it as our own and we identify with it. Yes, it's true, I'm ugly. Yeah, so you feel ugly. And then it starts sometimes spiraling, like you start eating maybe like because you feel ugly. Anyway, whatever you do, you'll always feel ugly because you believe that you're ugly. But instead, if we start observing our thoughts and instead thinking, okay, this feeling of ugly, I just observe, I don't identify with it, I just let it pass. I still, okay, but it's not true, I'm ugly. And then you kind of just goes away. Or it could be with the other feelings too. Sometimes there could be a feeling that could be something that said, oh, you'll always be alone, right? There is this feeling that passes by like a cloud. And what you can do instead, what we do, we normally like look at it and we identify with it, okay? We make it our own. Yes, I'll always be alone. And then you start kind of panicking, you start crying, you start spiraling because you make this feeling your own. But what should we do instead is when these kind of thoughts arrive, you just kind of simply observe, not identify with them, because most of the times, I will tell you something, some of these feelings, if you deeply then do some work, you'll actually feel that some of these words and these things that come into our head, they're not truly our own. Maybe they came from childhood wounds in the past where maybe your parents will say, oh, if you're doing this, you're gonna end up alone, you know? And that kind of, you absorb these kind of things and then you make them your own. So when we instead learn how to observe our thoughts, not identify with them, and instead just reassuring ourselves, because you have the power, by the way, to make yourself feel safe. You decide what to believe and what to think and what to make yours in terms of the thoughts. We decide to grab and hold on to a thought and make it ours and then believe it. But instead, if we just learn how to observe them, instead of believing them, reassuring ourselves, well, it's not true that I'm alone, really. Let's think about my friends. I actually got friends. They love me. They've not abandoned me. Or I have my sister I'm very close with, or I've got this very good relationship I'm very lucky to have. So you start kind of contradicting these thoughts and actually observing that in reality it's not true that you are alone, you know? And then if you make that and you learn to make yourself feel safe and to regulate yourself, you start actually understanding that all these thoughts, they're just thoughts. They're not real. And sometimes we only make them real because we associate with them. That is the difference. So when the overachiever kind of runs away, and in so many ways, I used to do it myself in my own, I have to actually openly admit that I used to always run for myself, whether at work. Sometimes I had very huge extreme of coping mechanisms. For me, I used to move countries, and it's so extreme because I always thought, okay, if I run from this feeling of like being all this like so much clouds of things, maybe if I move to this other country, I'll have a happy life. Or if I go to this other place, then everything will be like reset and then I'll start a new life. But I started noticing that no matter where I was living, in every part of the world I was living, there was one thing that would always follow me, and it's myself. I would always live with myself. I cannot escape. I can maybe change the environment, but if my mind and the way I think is the same, I would choose the same people, the same situations. I would feel exactly the same way in every place. And I would be just a little bit distracted in the first few months of adaptation because I would have to adapt, of course, again, but I'm running away from something because I'm keeping myself busy trying to adapt a new bank account, a new registration and everything. And then once everything is settled again, then this feeling would come up. And then I would think, oh, maybe it's the place. Let me just move again. And it's just always kind of running away. This is a bit of an extreme example, but we do it even with work, with things. Okay, no, like I cannot say, like, let me do this, let me do that. Maybe I will feel better. And then a little bit, you do feel better, right? When you accomplish this. But how long does it really last before the next thing arrives? But that's the kind of a paradox. Instead, in order to feel better, rather than achieving more, sometimes it's actually to slow down instead a little bit and sit with this crazy, overwhelming feelings that is going to be overwhelming, because that's why you're escaping from it in the first place. So it is going to be overwhelming. But really, instead of just being afraid of it, sitting with it and being present with it and listening to what it really wants to say. And maybe you'll find out that deep down inside of you, there is a very scared kid that is crying, that wants love and wants attention, because maybe it was not being given when they were smaller. And what you're doing exactly the same thing as your caretakers, because you're again ignoring that child inside of you, the inner child, because you're still getting busy. You're just kind of like running away. And all maybe they're asking from you, from your adult self right now, is to stop and just listen to what they've got to say, to comfort them, because they've not had that love that they deserved, not because maybe on purpose even, maybe because other circumstances, because, you know, in our environment, people or like caretakers, they didn't know how to do it in the right way. We cannot just blame like this, because obviously there is also traumas that they're also carrying on the other side and at the other end. But if you don't give yourself that love, you cannot ask it from other people, because they will never be able to match that love that only you know how to give it to you. And always expecting others to give it to you will always make you suffer, because it's never going to be enough, because they don't know what kind of love you need, that you can only give to yourself. And I know it sounds so cliche, I know it is, but you only know the type of love you need. So if you actually truly stopped and trying to really learn to, okay, let's sit with these uncomfortable feelings, listen what they truly have to say, and comfort that inner part of you that really needed comfort even back then in the past when no one was there to comfort them. You can now step in and go back in and just actually give yourself that comfort and security that they need. Maybe, only maybe, then you will start feeling a little bit less tired and a little bit less worried about always overachieving, because now you know that you are good, especially as you are right now, even without the next achievement, the next thing. And I hope this helped you a little bit to stop. And please do not expect, as an overachiever, I know what your immediate mind is going to think. Oh, you see, you feel guilty because you even demand this much from yourself. But remember that everything you do and you are right now, they helped you survive when you were a child. So it's a one step at a time, and especially it's about recognizing slowly this would be be a step-by-step progress, okay? And sometimes you're going to be falling back into the same mentality, and it's absolutely part of the journey. Remember, it's not about being perfect, because if you are again blaming yourself because you've made yet again a mistake, or you've kind of acted like you are used to, is again you trying to chase that perfection, that we're never allowed to make mistakes, right? But instead, it's about being kinder to yourself, sitting and being a little bit more present with you and listen to what your inner part wants to tell you. And I hope you found this episode useful. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss any episodes. Ciao.